You know what's funny? It seems like the only people that like Joe Rogan are sheep that think that they're not sheep. Because non-sheep do not like Joe Rogan at all. And of course the liberal progressives hate him because they hate anybody that presents any kind of logical argument. But that piece of shit's a gatekeeper, and he's also blah 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 blah, boring like Joe Rogan, but blah blah blah, yeah, no personality at all. His personality is like, I'm going to interview people 1,000 times more interesting than me. But he's totally emasculated, you know? Like, you see this dude that's all buff and he's got a bunch of tattoos and you think, that's a man. No, a real man wouldn't be a fucking gatekeeper. People that are true seekers of the truth seekers of honest journalism, they don't like him because of the fact that he doesn't stand for anything. I mean, granted, he's good at what he does. I mean, he has a bunch of people on his podcast or whatever that, like, you know, are interesting. Like, that's good. He has a well-rounded variety of people on his show that pose decent questions. But my problem is more with people that watch his stuff and they don't realize, like, what he's truly about, you know? But a lot of the time I wonder if Joe Rogan knows who Joe Rogan is. And I wonder that about a lot of people that are prominent celebrities. I wonder that about, you know, the obvious psyop of all the MK Ultra inspired bands of the 60s, you know, the haight, Ashbury. I wonder if they were aware of how they were being used. Probably not. I mean, I'm sure that they were just given a bunch of drugs and alcohol and they were like, go on tour and play music for a bunch of drug-addled, hippied out people that want to pretend that they're against the war and really they just want to do drugs and have sex and not have any responsibility. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I've definitely lived that life. It gets boring after a while. You know what's crazy is, like, doing stand-up comedy and just listening to these kids, you know? They're kids. And I work with a lot of kids that are actual kids, you know, well, not children, but 16, 17, 18. They're still babies, man. And they're talking about all these drugs that they're on all the time. I really think it's the parents' fault. It's totally a parenting problem. I don't agree with the legalization of marijuana. But I agree with the decriminalization of it. But full legalization is a terrible, terrible idea. Because people do not know what they're doing. They don't even know what's in their food. Like, you really want them to go to a dispensary where they have no idea what's in their weed? Like, how do you even know that the person that's, like, at the dispensary knows what the fuck is going on? Because so many people, from my understanding, you know, especially now, now granted, we've always kind of known this, but it's like the rest of the world is figuring out just because somebody calls themselves a professional or an expert or whatever the fuck, that doesn't mean that they know anything. So, do you really really think that we should be legalizing yet another drug that could have potentially damaging side effects, such as psychosis. Okay? America is already in a state of psychosis. Speaking of psychosis, the last person that I smoked marijuana with, the same night that I ended up eating too much of a pot brownie and hallucinated, that was last night. Like 9.5 months ago, something like that. I don't remember. But the last person I smoked with, interesting little story. I was telling her that I was, strongly considering just giving up weed entirely. And it's so weird that, like, I literally did that night after we smoked and I had an edible. But, I was telling her about the negative side effects of weed, and I said that, yeah, it makes people psychotic and dangerous. And people can laugh at that all they want. Like, she thought that was ridiculous, right? She thought that was so unbelievable. And most people that are addicted to pot, they won't admit this, but people that are dependent on it for various reasons can't see the potential for it to be a negative thing. They can't see the possibility that it could possibly induce anxiety, and it could possibly not be the beloved drug that it's been for them this entire time, And it is a fucking drug, and for anybody that thinks that it's not, they're just retarded. But anyway, fast forward a few months after this, she starts talking about how her boyfriend is having these crazy psychotic episodes. And I asked her, I'm like, does he smoke weed? And she's like, yeah, of course, we smoke every day. And I said, he's got to stop smoking weed. Now, apparently he's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Now, he won't take his medication. Now, you guys know how I feel about psychiatric medication. But what's funny is that he has no problem, smoking marijuana, even though he keeps freaking out about the police being after him, and he keeps freaking out about her cheating on him, and she is like such a fucking angel. Like, she's a saint. She's never cheated on him, not once. He's cheated on her multiple times, which is why he's projecting, and he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize this shit. So he keeps smoking weed. Now, we have mutual friends that we work with who've said that they've never seen anybody smoke so much weed at once, okay? Now, keep in mind, these are potheads we're talking about. Potheads that smoke a lot of weed on a regular basis that are saying that he has a significant problem with this, all right? Fast forward a couple more months. This dude's threatening suicide, putting a gun to his head, saying that he's going to kill himself if she goes to work. He's going to kill himself unless she comes home and takes care of him. Now, being a good girlfriend, being a good woman, she's a very good woman, okay? She wants to stand by her man. And I told her, baby girl, I'm afraid he's going to be violent towards you. And she's like, oh, no, he'll never do that, Fast forward to last night. He fucking kills her dog. Now he's in jail. He's in jail for animal cruelty. I don't think he hurt her, but I mean, obviously he fucking hurt her dog. So he's trying to hurt her. But he's got charged with possession of a deadly weapon, marijuana possession, of course. Now, it's bad if she's calling the police. especially due to his paranoia about the police and all that shit. But I guess he was threatening suicide last night. Whenever the cops showed up, he put the gun to his head, said that he was going to kill himself and all that. He's definitely going to be evaluated by a psychiatrist. Now, I wonder if whenever he comes to, once he gets marijuana out of his system, if he's going to realize like what he's done and feel really bad about the whole thing. I don't know. But I do know that when you're in a state of psychosis, like, you're not capable of perceiving reality. And, you know, she's trying to be supportive of him. And I told her, man, he's being manipulative. He might not realize that he is, but that's what he's doing. None of her family knows about what's going on. I'm sure they found out about it because of Nashville Scoop. I'm sure that maybe they saw his mugshot in the paper. Yeah, dude. It's so fucking bad. And I don't want to be like, oh, well, I told you so. You know, because this is fucking horrible. This is so bad. The fact that this has really potential negative side effects. Like, people are already so crazy in this country, man. They are so fucking crazy. Look at what they do all day long. They're living in a non-reality. And now they're legalizing this plant that's a full-blown psychedelic at this point because of how high the THC content is. Okay? They've made that drug so much more addictive. I consider marijuana to be the MK Ultra experiment right now, because that's what's going on, and people don't get it because they're not up to snuff on history, you know, actual history that wasn't talked about in McGraw-Hill. Okay, there's so much that if you just do some research, you're like, what the fuck? Why didn't we ever learn about this in school? Fuck public school. Oh my god. Like, there was some comic tonight. Now, I'm glad that I watched all this. Like, as much as it hurts my soul, as much as it pains me to realize that this is the world I live in, and the reason why this world is so terrible is because of the nincompoops that are in it that don't give a fuck about anything. But it's important for me to understand their perspective, okay? So this comic, who's actually funny, all right? He's actually funny. I just don't agree with his perspective. I'm fair, all right? He said something that was so fucking true. And it totally encapsulated everything that's wrong with your average plebeian sheep, okay? He was talking about how people are complaining about what they're teaching in school. And he was like, fuck it, it's free. Does that not totally make sense out of why this country is going? And it totally deserves to, man. And I think that what hurts my soul the most is the fact that those pieces of shit will never realize why that's so terrible. They'll never understand the depth of how much their perspective and the way that they look at everything and, you know, their own behavior and the stuff that they refuse to do, like read and give a fuck about anything. You know, it's like they'll never understand that, like, that's what's causing everything to fall apart. Not that they even notice, but, you know, you gotta be patient and tolerant because they're deaf, dumb, and blind. They know not what they do.